The first stage of healing you're not going to like because it is scary to face your feelings. This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the first stage of healing, denial. And the reason why it's the hardest stage to get through is because it's denial. When you're in denial about how you're really feeling, you're suppressing the emotions. You're not even aware of how you feel. In fact, you're in a disassociated state. You're actually seeing your life like you're watching your life happen like a movie. It is very common with people with trauma. And when you're in the professional world, when you're dealing with family issues, if you're not fully present facing the challenges of your life, you're not going to be effective at overcoming those challenges. And that's the impact that trauma has on people's minds and experience. The sense of derealization. When the world and your whole life just seems like a movie, there's a sense of, life not being real because a piece of your soul is actually missing, so you can't fully be present. And because of that, you're in denial about how you really feel. And other people may see it. They may see behavioral patterns. They may see you getting upset easily, getting triggered, your isolation, your avoiding of people, your hypervigilance, but you can't. People can sense that you're afraid of other people, and there's a shaking in your voice. There's an underlying anxiety to your sense of being, but you can't. It's a blind spot. Only it's a blind spot caused by trauma. It's not a character flaw. It's the brain's response to trauma. It's what happens to your soul. Because most commonly the soul, a fragment of the soul leaves the body. And that fragment of soul is an aspect of your consciousness, call it an aspect of your mind that just isn't there anymore. The lights are on, but nobody's home. And often this is a hard thing to admit. I know when I was depressed and was very angry growing up and had a chip on my shoulder, and I didn't know why. I attempted suicide when I was 19. Couldn't get along with my parents, and all my friendships just phased out and didn't know why that was happening. I was very angry. I was narcissistic. I was very selfish. But in my mind, I was just protecting myself and defending myself. And when people called me out, I would flip out on them. I remember in college, my housemate told me, Spencer, you got these issues. Whenever we talk about it, I know you're very sensitive and I don't want to upset you. I'm not trying to offend you. She tried to talk to me about my issues, and I got upset and started flipping out on them. And she said, see, this is what I mean. We're just saying, when you do something, you say you're going to do it, you don't do it. You talk about this and that, but you don't really own up to it. You don't, it's like, we don't know how to talk to you, Spencer. And I'm like, what the hell? I started flipping out on them because I was in denial. And, years later, I did other forms of healing modalities, and that's what really helped me. So I know this. I'm speaking from my experience, my own sense of denial. I know I got upset when people tried to talk to me about my behavior because what happens is there's an uncomfortable feeling, and that feeling is anger, rage, fear, guilt, and shame. And underneath that is agony, despair, helplessness, and powerlessness, and hopelessness. And it's not comfortable to feel that. And underneath that was a deep sense of terror. I was used as a human sacrifice when I was 4 years old and brought to the brink of death. And that emotion of fear was my brain playing that memory of dying back over and over and over. And whenever that feeling came up of dying, I got afraid and became very defensive. That's what was going on. And I'm able to talk about it without getting upset because I processed the feelings. You see, when you process your emotions, the brain wants to, your soul, your spirit wants to come to a state of completion because that is the liberated state. That is what is called moksha, liberation or freedom. And to attain that state, you actually have to sit through the emotions. So through meditation, I was able to process these emotions of terror, fear, helplessness, powerlessness, agony, and despair underneath the anger, rage, fear, guilt, and shame. And even processing all those emotions. See, all those emotions come up all at once, and they're overwhelming for the brain, overwhelming for the cortex, for the prefrontal cortex specifically. So the brain suppresses the emotions. It's called your unconscious mind. And when it's in there, you feel safe. You don't have to deal with them. But sooner or later, they come out and rear their ugly head through your behavior. You know, that's what I mean by other people will see it, but you won't. That's why it is the most difficult stage. The stage of denial. Doesn't make you a bad person. Doesn't make you a liar. Doesn't make you disingenuous. It just makes it so you don't have to deal with it because you're in denial. An alcoholic is in denial. A drug addict is in denial. A narcissist is in denial. A person with borderline personality disorder is in denial. They all act out in some way, shape, or form, but never admit they have a problem. That's what I mean by the word denial. That's what I mean by you're not going to like this. Because nobody likes feeling those feelings. Facing the music, looking at yourself in the mirror. But the only way to really transform your life is to look at yourself in the mirror and come to terms with how you really feel, to be honest, completely honest with yourself. And that sense of honesty, that sense of self-awareness is what's going to liberate you. I'm not going to talk about the other 4 stages, just the denial. Because to get to the other 4 stages, you got to get through denial. You got to get to a place of owning your emotions, of becoming aware of your emotions. For most men out there, you're not even aware of how you feel. I think women have a more intuitive sense about things. They're more in tune with their emotions based upon their chemistry and how they're raised. Men are taught not to cry, that we're weak, we're pathetic if we cry. So we often bottle up our emotions and often deny feeling anything at all. And we go through life like that because we want to appear tough. We want to appear strong. No man wants to appear weak. We live in a very competitive world in a dog-eat-dog mentality. When you show weakness, you get walked all over. You get outdone. You get left behind. You get put on the losing team. At least perceptually. Ultimately, that's all just a reality of perception. Real community, real brotherhood transcends winning, losing, looking good, looking bad, higher status, lower status. Real brotherhood is real love. You won't find that until you come out of that place of denial. Now, often you can find a safe space to talk, like men's circles, healing circles, Alcoholics Anonymous, talking circles, psychotherapist office, places like that where you can begin to open up and start to talk about how you really feel in a safe space. Now, for you men out there listening, you understand this. You don't want to talk to your girlfriend or your wife, even though your wife says you should talk to her about it. A woman cannot solve a man's problem, especially his emotional problems. What we feel about ourselves is differently than the way a woman feels. The emotions that we feel often make us feel inadequate. Inadequate in our ability to provide, inadequate in our ability to hunt, inadequate in our ability to work and lead. That's what makes it so troubling to admit that you have these emotional problems, that you feel this way. You could begin to isolate yourself because you don't want anyone to know how you really feel. grieving inside, hurt, disappointed, and let down. It comes out in alcoholism and drug abuse. It comes out in unhealthy behavioral patterns. You know what I'm talking about. It's not healthy to live like that. No one's going to judge you. No one's going to hold it against you. A lot of us have trauma from our childhood, either in the way that our parents treated us or something that happened at school, getting beaten up. Somewhere in your history, something happened to you that deeply bothers you in your whole way of life. All the problems that you have, this is your way of dealing with those emotions. Nobody ever taught us how to give vocabulary to our emotions, so we don't even know how to express how we feel. We don't even have words for how we feel. The words of anger, rage, fear, guilt, and shame scratches the surface. Despair, anguish. Those are the words that describe how we really feel. Helpless, powerless, terrorized, that frozen fear. I just gave you the vocabulary for the terms, besides sadness, disappointment in oneself. Sometimes you let yourself down, but we're only human. We're hard on ourselves. We place high expectations and expect ourselves to live up to them. And when we don't, we get judgmental because there's a fear of not being competitive enough to provide for our families, to go to work every day and pay the bills, to keep the roof over our heads. There's a deep fear of being inadequate. And that fear, that insecurity, that uncertainty, that powerlessness needs to be embraced. Because underneath that is a sense of control. You can't control everything. You can only control how you react and respond to life, situations, and people. So don't be hard on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Find a community. Find a friend. Find a circle that you feel safe enough, that you trust enough to open up. And you'll find a way to vocalize and verbalize how you feel. And once you do that, you will feel liberated, relieved of carrying the burden of manhood on your shoulders. No one asked you. No one put you up to it. It's simply a social programming on the idea of what a man is. I can help you with that and find your authentic self. Because it's scary to do it alone. And I know how much you want to say you got it and you can handle it. I was like that myself. But denying how you really feel and denying the state of mind, the state of heart you're in, is not going to get you to that next level in your life. In order to grow, you've got to have a place to grow from. And that place to go from is self-honesty. And that self-honesty is getting in tune with your body, with how you really feel. And begin to admit to yourself, and begin to open up to yourself first about how you really feel. And don't bottle it up. Don't wash it down. Don't pretend it's not there. To get to where you want to be, you need to process these emotions. And I can help you do that. As a men's coach, and I'm going to help you find your authentic self and help you heal. Because men can only help men heal. A woman does not understand a man's emotional self. I do that through my 5 stages of coaching. The first stage is we're going to get clear on your goals. Where do you want to go from here? What do you want to accomplish? Then we're going to work on mindset. How you think about yourself is how you think about the world. How you perceive the world is how you respond to the world. Your mindset is everything, your paradigm, your sense of self. Then we're going to get into some skills to help get you started on your goals. And after that, we're going to get into what is it going to take to follow through with commitments. This is a leadership problem. And all men have it in us to be a leader. Who's going to step up to the plate? Then we're going to work on healing. Because healing and the emotional wounds are always going to get in the way of your leadership. We need to heal those wounds. We need to process those bad feelings. And it begins by giving it a vocabulary, giving your emotions a voice so you can vocalize it and clear it out of your system. Take the weight off of your shoulders and find freedom, fulfillment, and then you'll find your abundance. This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. If you want to contact me for a discovery session, my website information will be in the description, and I'll put my phone number in there. Contact me so we can set up a discovery session. I can listen to what it is that's happening in your life, where you want to go, what's holding you back. I can get to understand your circumstance so we can create a plan together to get you to where you want to be. This is Dr. Spencer Coaches. Thank you so much for listening. I sure hope that helps.